So we left off last week that Ibdus Hashem b'yira v'gilu b'rada. Sorry? Yeah. That the we should serve Hashem, says the pasuk, with simcha, with yira. We should serve Hashem with fear, v'gilu b'rada, and we should be joyous in our trembling. Meaning that apart from the pasuk that says Ivdus Hashem b'simcha, serve Hashem with joy, we're also told we have to serve Hashem with yira, with awe. But even serving Hashem with awe means gilu birada. You should celebrate in your trembling, but it doesn't contradict simcha, it complements it. So the Rebbe said what that means is that serving Hashem with joy is essential, as we've established. It's the foundation of Avodas Hashem. However, joy, there's a risk to joy, and that is that because it's a feeling and it's an experience, so feelings and experiences can become egotistical. It can become about the high. And so, therefore, joy needs to be accompanied with yira, with awe, or as he says, bittul and anava, complete self-negation and humility, and then the joy will only have positive, it will not be negative. So this theme is going to be explored further in the Maimer. We're in Daled now, on page Kuf Memches. So based on this idea, the Rebbe Rashab, whose birthday it is today, Chaf Mar Cheshvan, and the day that this Maimer was said, he explains Inyan Asas Chava, Asas Sarah, the Zohar that we quoted earlier. The Zohar says that Chava came along into the world, she descended, but she got entangled with the snake, and that got her in trouble. Noach came down, and he descended, he got drunk, and so that got him in trouble. But Sarah came along, she went down, but she came up again. She was successful, and therefore for her, she lives a higher level of life, a supernal life, and life was hers. That's what the Zohar said. So we question that. What does it mean? What was Sarah doing that Noach and Chava failed to do? What was going on here? So the Rebbe Rashab in his Maimer explains that it was all about simcha. That what's equal, the common denominator between Chava, Noach, and Sarah is all three of them were trying to achieve simcha, a life of joy, to serve Hashem with joy. As it says by Chava, our sages tell us that with Chava, when she ate from the fruit, it says Eshkel Shalanovim Sachta v'Nosnaloi, that it was a cluster of grapes, the tree of knowledge. The Eitz Hadas was grapes, and she squeezed a cluster of grapes and gave it to Adam to drink. So, also they ate and drank, and so the Eitz Hadas was a cluster of grapes, specifically drinking it in the form of wine. Just like then they became pregnant and gave birth immediately, so too the wine became fermented immediately. And so it was an experience of drinking wine. It was eating from the Eitz Hadas. And so to by Noach it says that he immediately after the flood planted a vineyard and drank from the wine. So
the yain is a machlava, drink wine.
He's going to explain that. That's the simcha. The yain hu inyan simcha. That wine is the idea of simcha. Drinking wine. Why did Chava think it was a good idea to drink the wine and give it to Adam to drink? Why did Noach want to plant the vineyard straight away after the flood? Because wine is connected to simcha, to joy. Mashakosov Yainam Samech Elikim Banoshim. As the pasuk says that wine brings joy to God and to man. What does that mean?
What to go?
That wine brings joy to God and to man? Elikim Banoshim. So the Gemara says, Mikan she'ein oimrim shira ela b'yayin. From here we learn this pasuk that the song that was sung in the Beis Hamikdash by the Leviim was only sung over the wine libations. We know in the temple there were many different offerings. One of them was wine that was poured on the altar. And so the Gemara says that when the pasuk says that wine brought joy to God and man, that we enjoy the wine, and that causes us to sing the praises of Hashem, which Hashem enjoys. So Hashem has joy from the wine because we sing praises to Him over the wine. Not that He enjoys the wine. He enjoys the result of it, the praises that we sing as a result. So if wine is specifically connected to joy, so therefore Chava drinking and giving her husband to drink from the wine was to achieve joy. And Noach also, he wanted to do the same thing. So what's the problem here? We said you have to serve Hashem with joy. And indeed, this was a correct thing to do, therefore, to try and bring joy into the Avodas Hashem. If that was her intention, why was that so bad? If that was Noach's intention, what went wrong? So he explains. The problem was with Chava, the joy was murgish, was felt and experienced. It was a self-centered joy. The Bechava, as indeed it says, it says that the woman saw that the fruit was good for eating, and it was desirous to the eyes. Which what that means is that she was experiencing hargasha, feeling the joy. Now you have to think about it. Adam and Chava were created originally by the hand of Hashem. They were on an extremely high level. They had no Yetzer Hara. So they really had no sense of ego, of separateness from Hashem. And Chava looked at the fruit and she saw that this was something desirable. She saw in it the opportunity for self-fulfillment. And she felt, well, that's what we need. Because we weren't created to be nothings, we were created to be a something that serves Hashem. And so, by eating from the fruit, having a feeling, having an experience, I'm going to become a somebody that can then serve Hashem.
But Rabbi, if they didn't have any Yetzer Hara, how are they getting any kind of negative feeling arising?
Well, that was from the snake. The suggestion came from the snake, the Nachash, which was an external Yetzer Hara. But Chava, she's making a calculation here and saying, I'm here to serve Hashem as a separate being. This is why He created us.
So it came from a good place.
So I need to be a somebody. To be a somebody, I need das. I need self-awareness. Eitz das means self-awareness. But Hashem didn't create us to be angels that have no self-awareness, that is totally nullified to Him without any self. Hashem wants us to have a self. So she saw that as a positive thing. The problem is, once you get into that world of self, so then that's not a world of serving Hashem. That's the opposite of serving Hashem, which perhaps was the intention, as the Medrash says, Nora Lila b'nei Adam, that Hashem set up Adam and Chava. Really, they had to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It was the divine plan ultimately, but it had to come as a result of them doing it, not Hashem telling them to do it. It was a result of them disconnecting themselves. So Chava saw that this would be experienced, to become a being who experiences stuff, who has a sense of self, an identity. That's what it means, that she saw that it's a good fruit to eat, it's a desire for the eyes.
So what was the mistake that Chava did here? She went about acting upon this feeling instead of waiting for Hashem to reveal her?
Well,
what his plans were?
the mistake was that she did what Hashem said not to do. Ultimately, it's what Hashem wanted to happen. but it had to happen as a sin, not as a mitzvah. If Hashem would have told him to do it, then that would have been bittul. That wouldn't have been hargasha. So it's a different type of sin to all others that came after it. But ultimately, it's going against what Hashem said, and becoming murgish, having a.
So did they
an
know
ego.
that this was the plan the whole time, and that they didn't regret it afterwards?
I don't know if they could have known, because if they knew, then that would have ruined
Well,
everything.
even if they would have known, it's still Hashem told them to do one thing, and they were smart, and then they did something else. It's still the din of Hargasha.
Yeah. It's you making a move. Chava was making a move here that Hashem didn't say to do. So that's
Right. And
becoming a
she was
Messias.
saying she knows better,
Mhm.
and she knows what Hashem really wants, even though Hashem said otherwise.
Yeah.
So did she regret it afterwards? Do you think?
It says they did tshuva. They did tshuva that day. So there was a sense of regret, because imagine not having hargasha, not having a sense of self, and then getting it, like getting a sense of ego, like
Pretty powerful feeling.
yeah, like so I don't know if I want this. Now they actually felt separate from Hashem. So they probably said, let's go back. And since then, we've been trying to go back.
They made the Shuvah on the same day there.
Yeah.
Could they made the Shuvah?
That's why Rosh Hashanah. That's why we have Rosh Hashanah that day. Rosh Hashanah is the day that they.
The first person to say sorry was his son, Cain, when he killed.
Different levels of tshuva, but
And then his father said, "Oh, you see, you said sorry."
mhm,
So he learned from his son.
mhm.
Yes, to say sorry.
So this was the step down that Chava took, and now she's entangled with the snake. Now the Yetzer Hara is yours, and the feeling of hargasha and looking for self-fulfillment and being self-absorbed and self-conscious, that all came after this. That's why suddenly they were embarrassed that they were naked. Before that they weren't. Because how would embarrassment is self-consciousness. They didn't have that. And there was nothing to be embarrassed about. But now they become self-conscious. So they've taken on hargasha, feeling of self. So this was Chava's descent. Noach wanted to fix this. Noach saw himself, the Zohar says, he was the one who came into the world, the new world. He was the new progenitor of humanity. So this is the new start, the fresh start of creation. And so he understood that his job was to correct what Adam and Chava did wrong. So if what they did wrong was eating from the Eitz Hadas, becoming self-conscious, so his job was to reverse that. She'inyan hargasha. The whole sin of the Eitz Hadas is hargasha, is self-consciousness and feeling. So he wanted to fix that al yedei hargasha through a different type of feeling, a different level of self-consciousness. But also biyodei, he did not succeed. His attempt to fix the Eitz Hadas didn't succeed. Why? Because he drank from the wine. This is the wine that Chava drank from. It's the same concept, having joy, sense of self, a feeling. But when he drank, it brought him loy l'simcha sheb'chinas bittul. It didn't bring him to a level of joy that was self-nullified joy, a humble joy. Yain HaMasameach, which is the wine that brings joy, true joy, which we said previously. True joy is when you're in a state of bittul, of nullification. Ki'im leva yishkar. Rather, it brought him to drunkenness, Yain HaMashakar, wine that intoxicates. So, why would Noach think that doing the same thing would fix the problem? that doesn't work. When somebody makes a mistake, you don't repeat the mistake in order to fix it. So why would Noach think that Adam and Chava drank from the wine, they became self-conscious, so I'm going to drink from the wine to fix it? Why would that be fixing it? So
He wasn't told not to.
No. So drink wine, but why would that be a tikkun? Why would it be fixing what they did? Why would it correct the sin? So the Rebbe explains, "V'agam de b'shichrus hu hed hargasha." Now, even though you would think that actually what Noach was doing was different to Adam and Chava. It doesn't say Adam and Chava got drunk. They drank from the wine and became self-conscious. Noach got drunk, and drunkenness is lack of self-consciousness. So he was taking the same thing, the wine, but instead of becoming self-conscious out of it, he was losing his self-consciousness, losing his inhibition. As we see, that's what happens when you drink and get drunk, that you lose a sense of self, and you're not embarrassed, no shame, and you do and say things that you wouldn't do otherwise.
What
So
should knock down?
So what? So one sec. So Noach thought, let me lose my self-consciousness completely by becoming drunk, and therefore that is the tikkun. That if Chava drank and became self-conscious, I'll drink and become unconscious. But the Rebbe says this wasn't the tikkun. Aval heder argasha shebazeh v'loy mitzad hanava v'bitul ki mitzad bilbul adas v'argasha. The problem is the unconsciousness or lack of self-consciousness that comes about through getting drunk is not something that comes out of humility and nullification to a higher power. Rather, it comes out of confusion, of a lack of awareness and a lack of feeling. In other words, the tikkun of what Chava did wrong doesn't come about through negating self-consciousness by becoming drunk and unaware. That's not a tikkun of it. The tikkun has to come through utilizing the self-consciousness to go to a higher place. So what Noach thought, his intention was that the ego is the problem, self-consciousness is a problem, self-awareness is a problem, so I'll negate it by becoming drunk and unaware. But what he missed was the deeper message behind what Chava did, that Chava, it was a necessary step. To become self-conscious was necessary, because the whole point of our existence is to draw down the divine light into this world down here. And the only way to do that is to have a sense of self which is disconnected from Hashem, and connect that to Hashem. Connect your sense of self to Hashem. Not by negating it, by becoming confused, drunk and unconscious, but in your consciousness raising it to a higher level, which is called bittul, where there's you, but that you is totally nullified to Hashem. So, in other words, Noach's mistake was an understandable one. It's on a very high level, that he understood the sin of Chava as being just a mistake, going down the wrong path, and so let's reverse it by completely erasing the result of the sin. The sin resulted in self-consciousness. Let's erase self-consciousness. So drunkenness is a great way to do that. And using the very substance, the very thing that Chava used, the wine, to bring to unconsciousness rather than self-consciousness. You can understand what his thinking was. The point he missed was a subtle point, but extremely important one, and that is that the sin of Chava was not a detour going in the wrong direction. It was a step towards the right direction. You need to have the consciousness, and that consciousness needs to be elevated. If Hashem wanted us to be unconscious, He could have created us unconscious. He could have created us having no sense of self whatsoever, like some angelic being that has no separateness. The fact that He put us down here in this world is because He wants the down here, this world, to connect to Him. And Chava, eating from the fruit and becoming self-conscious, was a step down, but a necessary step down into the world of ego. So ego needs to be sublimated, elevated, and connected. It's a little bit like, let's say, somebody who is struggling with arrogance. They're an arrogant person and they're struggling with it. They want to fix their arrogance. So one way you could work on that is by putting yourself down, and calling yourself a nobody, and insulting yourself and seeing yourself as useless, fighting against your arrogance by going to the other extreme, that becoming like a complete doormat, like you're a nobody. The problem with that is that now you've created a new problem. Before you had the problem of arrogance, now you have the problem of no self-worth, you're useless, and so what good are you? Hashem created you with a purpose. You have gifts and you have things to contribute, and that will only happen if you utilize those gifts. But if you're arrogant, so then it all becomes about you. Everything's about you. That's a problem. When it all becomes about Hashem, your talents, your gifts, and your abilities all become about serving a high purpose. So then there's a you, and that you is serving something higher, not you. It's not about you anymore. It's about something higher than you. So Noach made the mistake of thinking that the hargasha, the ego, has to be obliterated. And the way his strategy was to get drunk and to become totally uninhibited, unself-conscious. But that, the Rebbe says, is not elevating hargasha. It's negating hargasha through confusion, through a lack of awareness. That's not what's supposed to happen. So how did the tikkun really happen? Tikkun al chet eitzedas inin hargasha. So the real tikkun, the correction of the sin of the eitzedas, of the tree of knowledge meaning self-consciousness. Nasa de Sarah Dafka. It was achieved through Sarah. Brackets Kemvur b'Kabbalah, as it says in Kabbalah, in the works of Kabbalah, Shesara tiknu mashakilku Chava. It says that Sarah came along and corrected the sin of Chava. Sarah was a Gilgul. She had the neshama of Chava. She was a correction of Chava. The beginning of the correction of the sin happened with Sarah. How so? So what was Sarah? How was she different? The Sarah he bechinas malchus, because Sarah, her level was the level known as malchus, which is royalty. It's the 10th of the 10 spheres. And Shlachen Nikra Sarah Meloshen Srara. That's why her name Sarah means royal, princess. And what is Malchus? If we understand Malchus, we'll understand why Malchus is the correction of Chava. Because Malchus is Inyan Bittul. Because Malchus is Bittul, is nullification to a higher purpose. So therefore she, Sarah, who embodied the level of Malchus, she created she was corrected the sin of Chava. Simcha shebechinas bittul. She reached the level of joy, but joy that is infused with bittul, with self-nullification. We'll understand this by understanding what Malchus is. It's the lowest of the 10 spheres. It's the last one and the lowest. But what is it? It's a bit hard to put our finger on Malchus. Like when we say Chesed and the attribute of Chesed, okay, what is Chesed? That's giving, loving, bestowing. Gvura is holding back, being disciplined. So we get that. Tiferes is a sensitivity, empathy, compassion. Netzach is determination to overcome. Hoid is submission. Yesod is connectiveness, to be able to communicate, to connect. Malchus is royalty. What does it actually mean? What is the attribute? What is it? So Malchus is the most enigmatic of all of them because it has certain contradictory features to it. That on the one hand, Malchus means royalty. So it means like a king has royalty. So what is a king? A king means somebody who has authority, who has power, who has influence. So Malchus in our personality means our ability to influence others, to have authority and a presence. But it says about Malchus, Leis L'Megar Maklum, that it actually has nothing of its own. Malchus doesn't contribute anything new to the personality. All it does is it conveys your personality to others. It passes on who you are to the outside. In other words, the fact that a king is a king,
You cannot be a king without a kingdom.
right? So there's not a personality trait called being a king. It's that he has certain wisdom and an ability to direct, and that's what flows through Malchus. So Malchus is the expression of that which is higher than it. If you don't have Malchus, what does that mean? You can have a person who has many talents, abilities, but they're not expressed. No one else sees them. If you only had Malchus, but you didn't have those talents, so then what would that be? Well, there's nothing being expressed. I think the best way to understand Malchus in personal psychological terms would be that Malchus is confidence. As far as our character traits, Malchus would be confidence. What does confidence mean? A person who has confidence, what do they have?
Knows he can achieve something.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like a presence?
It's a certain presence. When somebody walks into the room with confidence, we know that that's a confident person. How? The way they walk, the way they stand, the way they look at you in the eye, the way they talk, the tone of voice. There is a sense of confidence. This is a person who knows who they are and is comfortable with themselves. When somebody walks into the room who is not confident, you also know it. That this is somebody who is uncomfortable in their own skin. They don't know where their place is exactly, and so they're looking to try and hide or to avoid, or sometimes they're very loud and noisy. Their lack of confidence makes them very noisy. They need to make sure that they are noticed because they're so worried that maybe they're not worthy. But we can see it. Everyone knows that this is a confident person, this is a not confident person. Now we know ourselves when we're confident or when we're not.
What's the best translation for Marcus in one word?
I think confidence.
Confident.
I think so. There's always many ways to understand these spheres, but I think as far as to understand it, how it works personally, and then how it works in the Olam Elyonim, I think confidence works quite well.
So how is confidence bittul?
Oh, so what is a confident person? What does it actually mean? Confidence itself is not a worthy thing. Just to be confident, to walk around being confident in what? Confidence has to be that I have something to offer, and therefore I'm going to offer it. I have the trust in myself to be able to give you what I have, to share what I have. So when you have confidence, when a person who has gifts has confidence, they express that confidence. So what is the power of confidence? It's to recognize that I have within me things that I want to share. The confidence itself is not is nothing. All it is an expression of what's inside. So you can have somebody who has confidence but actually doesn't have much to offer.
Never know.
Somebody who is very confident. But-
Confident of what? Of themselves or
Yeah.
their
Yeah. So they speak with great authority, even though they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? So So they're very convincing, but like when you actually listen, like they didn't say anything. There's nothing there. Confidence by itself is nothing. Confidence is just the conduit to bring. If you've got something to offer, then confidence is going to be a great way of conveying it. So confidence is a certain. It itself is empty. It has to be filled with what's above it. Whereas somebody who has a lot of talents and gifts but has no confidence, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get any of those gifts. The world is not going to receive anything because they're just so unsure of themselves. They keep it to themselves. They don't express. So confidence is merely a conduit for that which is above it.
I think sometimes you put yourself aside to do what's right, even if, let's say, you're a shy person, but you want to, you have a lot to give. By being bittle and actually doing what's right and having that confidence, you are able to share.
Correct. So when are we unconfident? When we're self-absorbed. When we're worried about what people are going to think, or am I in doing the right thing? Am I getting what I deserve? Am I being respected? When we're worried about that, that's when we're unconfident, and we don't get anywhere. Whereas when you don't think about yourself, you think about what needs to be done. You think about how you can impact the world, not for yourself, but how the world can be impacted. So then you do it. So ironically, people think that confidence means being full of yourself. No, confidence actually means being a conduit and allowing yourself to be expressed. Knowing that you have something to give and not being self-conscious about it.
Interesting. Most of the time, confidence is associated with the other aspect of being, he was overconfident.
Arrogant.
Yeah.
So that's not true confidence. That's probably the opposite. Somebody who needs to always be the center of attention and always be the one talking and the one leading, the one doing everything, is probably the most unconfident person. They're so insecure that they have to compensate for that what they feel is like they're actually not a non-entity, so they have to be noisy. A confident person can be quiet, can let other people talk, can listen. I can listen to what you have to say because I'm confident in myself. I know I have something to offer, so I can hear what you have to offer. So arrogance is the opposite of confidence. Is actually not the same thing. Real confidence is actually bittul, because bittul means that I have a high purpose, I have gifts that are given to me that need to be utilized. It's not about me.
Because someone that's so arrogant, he doesn't realize that he's so overconfident that he's so involved in his own world, doesn't he notice the arrogance?
Correct, but that person won't give space to another person. Someone who's really arrogant can't listen to another person, or can't hear another opinion, or can't give somebody else the stage. Why not? Why do you have to be? Because you're scared that if you're not the center of attention, you're nothing. In the end, it's actually a lack of self-confidence. So ironically, being comfortable with yourself is not being self-conscious. That is bittul. And that's what malchus, that's the attribute of malchus. So that's why malchus is the last of the 10 spheres. It receives from the ones above it. It's not full of itself. It's a conduit for that which is above it. But it's malchus, it's kingship, it's royalty, it's the influence, it's the power. And this, by the way, throughout Torah, when it talks about a king who is worthy of the title king, has this attribute. The authority of a king is not because they are insecure and so they have to express their power over other people. The real authority of a king is the king recognizes that they've been bestowed from above a responsibility, and they express that. They express that responsibility, and that's their power and influence. That's a true king. It's interesting, even though a monarchy is the opposite of democracy, we understand that a monarchy is not someone who's not voted in, but really, a true king, it was because the people wanted that person to be king. Otherwise, the people would overthrow the king. And so the king's authority comes because the people want him, but the people want him because they recognize in the king this royalty, that the king represents a higher power. It's not about him. That's what Malchus, that's what real Malchus is. So Sarah, whose very name, Sarah, means royalty, she reached this level of Malchus. This was her persona. She had absolute confidence. She said what she thought. She had authority in her home. She was a teacher who inspired others. But all of it was with absolute bittul, a sense of this is my mission, a higher mission, this is where it's coming from. And so, therefore, she did everything with joy, with the feeling, but a feeling that was with bittul. Not a self-absorbed feeling, but a feeling of something higher. So, V'zeu, the second line of the end, V'zeu asa Sarah v'nachta v'salkas. That's what it means in the Zohar, that Sarah came down. She descended, but she came up again. She went into the world of feeling, but she didn't get stuck in her feelings. She was able to be elevated. Shebetzada bitul shebemalchus hinegam k'shi yeredes lamata hayirida nachtas hi b'shvil aliyah v'salkas. So because she's in a state of bitul, a sense of mission, a sense of a higher purpose, so therefore, even when she goes down and she's involved in this world, her soul is down here in this world. But the yerida, the descent, is for the sake of going up higher, of elevating. The yerida samalchus lamata hi bechdei lavara l'takan and tzutzis the kedusha shenim soim lamata la'loisam l'mayla. As we know that malchus, the attribute of malchus, is the lowest, the last of the attributes. In the divine realm, it's the divine shchina, the indwelling presence of Hashem that comes down into the world, that is therefore somewhat disconnects from the source. But the whole point of that descent is to elevate the sparks of holiness that are down here in this world and bring it back. And so Malchus has the power to go down, but not to be lost, to elevate up again. And this we see in Sarah's life. We find this when Avram went down with Sarah to Egypt, in the physical sense. They actually went on a journey to Egypt, a lowly place. Avram But the reason for the descent into Mitzrayim was in order that when they leave Mitzrayim, as it says, Avram came out with his wife. That elevation, that coming out, was in a way that they were laden with wealth, with gold and silver and cattle. This all came about because of Sarah. As it says that they gave gifts to Avram because of her, because of Sarah. So on a physical level, the simple story was that they went down and everyone wanted Sarah. They wanted to take her to Pharaoh's house, and they gave gifts to Pharaoh, to Avram. She entered into Pharaoh's house, but she didn't get stuck there. She didn't get connected at all to Pharaoh. She was able to leave Pharaoh's house with gifts, laden with gifts. And that whole story is it happened physically, but it's also a spiritual story of the descent of Sarah, the power of Malchus, to come down into the world, to engage with Paro, with the negativity and the ego of this world, but not to get stuck in that, to come out with gifts, to come out with spiritual gifts with the deeper growth. Sarah got what Chava was trying to achieve but couldn't do it herself, and that is to enter into the world of ego, but not to become egotistical, to be able to lift yourself, to go higher in a way that is not self-absorbed.
What's that got to do with the iron? In the case of
Well, it's the same concept of that the yain was to try and reach simcha, joy, a life of connection and joy, but not in an egotistical way. So Chava introduced the concept of self-consciousness through drinking the wine, which is feeling joy, having a sense of presence. But the problem was that was self-absorbed. That was entering into the world of self-absorption. Noach wanted to fix it by losing consciousness, by drinking the wine and losing consciousness. But that was negating the ego, but it wasn't elevating it. Sarah had a sense of self, confidence, and joy, but it wasn't self-absorbed.
It's interesting. That's why I said Vayal Abraham. What happened?
So therefore, it says in the Zohar that she merited to a higher level of life. She was living life. She was alive, but on a higher level, because it was without ego. To the point where it says her life was hers. It was really hers. Meaning, she lived the life that was hers. She was present. She wasn't drunk and unconscious. She was very conscious. She was alive, and her life was hers. She was in her own skin. She was living a joyous life, one that you could feeling joy. She felt joy. Because this is a fascinating line. Because Malchus, the attribute of Malchus, its very definition is bittul, is a sense of a higher purpose, something bigger than you, outside of you. So therefore, even her feeling, her experience of self was one with bittul. Meaning she didn't become a zombie with no personality. Bittul means that you have personality, you have a sense of self, but that self is dedicated to something higher than self. It's not about self. So you can be joyous and happy, but the happy is not about my feeling of happiness. It's not about me fulfilling something within myself. It's fulfilling something higher. And what does that mean in avodah, in our spiritual work? The gam kishasimchi bizgalus, that even the ability to express joy, not just joy that's deep in your heart, but an expressed joy that you're smiling and laughing and dancing and in a joyous state. But even then, it's in a state of total bittul. I'm not just looking to have fun or looking for a high. I have open, expressed joy, but that joy is all about a higher purpose. Like the a true king, who even though a king is in an elevated, elated state, it says that there's strength and joy in the place of power, where the power of the king is smiling and joyous, but it's not in an egotistical way. So therefore, from this joy, such joy, not only is it impossible for any negative consequence to come from such a joy, like in the case of Chava and Noach, where it ended up negative, but in a joy that is with bittul, no negative can come from that, because it's not self-absorbed. On the contrary, it takes you to the highest levels. To the point where you reach a level like the futuristic level, when Mashiach will come, as the Rebbe Rashab explains in his Maimer Shel Bal Yom Haledos, that Sarah's level, that her life was hers, that she was living a full life, this level was similar to what it says about the future. We will live in front of you. Meaning our life, we'll be alive, but our life will be in front of you, Hashem, meaning on the level that is connected to the deepest, the highest levels. That will be in the future. Chaim b'tachas hashleimus, which means living, but living on the highest and most complete level possible. So that's what it means to live with joy, but joy that is with bittul. And this is how Sarah corrected Chava's sin, which introduced one level of hargasha, of feeling self. Noach went the opposite direction, but that didn't fix things. It was only Sarah who was totally b'murgash, felt herself, felt joy, an open joy. But it wasn't about the feeling, it was about a higher purpose. So therefore, she corrected the sin. Okay, we'll stop there.